Republicans in Congress say they're just beginning to uncover the truth about what happened during last year's deadly attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi. 3 State Department witnesses testified the administration did not do enough to save the lives of the U.S. ambassador and 3 other Americans. Mark Martin has the story.
3 Foreign Service officers known as the Benghazi Whistleblowers told their side of what happened September 11th, 2012 in Benghazi, Libya.
None of us should ever again experience what we went through in Tripoli and Benghazi.
Gregory Hicks was Ambassador Chris Stevens' deputy.
I got the ambassador on the other end, and he said, "Greg, we're under attack."
The line went dead, and Hicks, who was at the embassy in Tripoli, said he wanted to dispatch a U.S. Special Forces team to Benghazi, but the team was ordered to stand down.
How did the personnel react to being told to stand down?
They were furious.
The Pentagon says the team was needed to fortify the embassy in Tripoli and would not have made it to Benghazi in time. Several hours after talking to the ambassador, Hicks took another call.
I think it's the saddest phone call I've ever had in my life. He told me that Ambassador Stevens had passed away.
One of the whistleblowers took issue with then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's testimony earlier this year about the motives behind the attack.
Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
What happened prior, during, and after the attack matter. And it matters to my colleagues, at the Department of State.
The witnesses also said the administration's blaming of a YouTube video for the attacks did not make sense and that they faced intimidation for questioning that line. The GOP says much more will come to light in future hearings.
This hearing opened the floodgates, but there are many, many more hearings we have to go through to find out the truth and find out why the truth became a lie.
It's about the government lying. It's about people being in harm's way, feeling abandoned, and we've got to repair that trust and hold somebody accountable. With responsibility and power comes accountability, and there has been none in Benghazi. That's about to change.
Republicans say the hearing showed politics played a role in how the administration responded before the presidential election. The White House says that's not true. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Pat, do you have some predictions here?
Well, Lee, the thing of it is the media is in the tank for Obama, and they're not going to do anything to hurt Obama if they can help it. So they're going to cover for him, and they're going to cast aspersion on anybody who criticizes the administration for doing anything. So when Nixon was having the Watergate problem, the media was against Nixon, and so the country turned against Nixon. Somebody, as a matter of fact, a reporter at CBS News, I understand, it was disciplined because she was getting to the heart of this issue and trying to get the facts. And CBS said she was becoming too partisan. You know, it's just ridiculous. They want to cover. So you say, what's my prediction? My prediction is it could hurt Hillary Clinton in the run for the presidency because she is right at the heart of this thing, and they'll keep bringing it up because there's no question she knew what was happening. There's a lot of lying going on, especially they hung Susan Rice out to dry on that thing, gave her false talking points, and then they've been lying about it. The administration and their flacks are lying. They changed the talking points, and they said, well, we got those in the CIA. Not true. It was changed in the White House. And that the American people should be concerned about it. Unfortunately, they think more about jobs and so forth than others. So, but Lee, I just don't know. Unless the media will swing against the administration on this one, it'll probably die like everything else unfavorable to him dies. Lee?
Yeah, Pat, we should clarify there. The reporter you're speaking of at CBS News is Cheryl Atkinson. She's been reporting on this from the very beginning. We have no evidence that she was ever disciplined by CBS, but there is a story circulating out there that some of her bosses at CBS News were a bit uncomfortable with the with the type of reporting she was doing on this, but we'll keep you posted on that. Authorities say 52-year-old Ariel Castro is the man responsible in a criminal case that has shocked the nation.
I just signed criminal complaints charging Ariel Castro with 4 counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of rape.
A 911 call Monday night from hostage Amanda Berry led police to Castro's home in Cleveland. That's where they say Berry, Gina DeJesus, and a third woman, Michelle Knight, had been held for 10 years. The women say Castro kidnapped each of them by offering them a ride home, then locked and chained them up. Police say the woman endured years of rape, isolation, and beatings. They were allowed outside the home only twice in 10 years, but in disguises. Boston's police commissioner says more surveillance cameras are needed to fight the war on terror. That's the testimony he's prepared to give Congress in its first hearing on the Boston Marathon bombings. Commissioner Ed Davis is calling for tighter security at public events, including more of these undercover officers, technology, and the cameras you see there. Cameras from a restaurant helped identify the 2 Boston bombing suspects. At the same time, Davis says he does not support actions that would move the police towards a police state mentality. Gun control advocates continue to push for tougher restrictions, but a recent study indicates that gun violence is actually decreasing in the U.S. The federal government reveals gun-related homicides are down 39% from their peak in 1993. Another report by the Pew Research Center found a drop of 49%. And both reports indicate non-fatal crimes involving guns were down by about 70% over that same period. Pat?
You know, it's amazing that reports, those studies from the American people, because they hear so much about this on the news, think that gun violence has gone up, when the actual fact is it has gone down. But you remember that famous dictum for the Obama administration, never let a crisis go to waste. So they've had a crisis, and they don't want to let it go to waste. They're pushing for gun laws, and it looks like the American people don't really want them. Lee?
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill turned the People's House into a house of prayer Wednesday. They asked for humility and wisdom as they make decisions that affect the country. The event honors the first inauguration of George Washington and his devotion to daily prayer. And it featured brief history lessons about Washington from former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, as well as Christian author Eric Metaxas. Nearly 225 years after Washington's inaugural prayer, they warn religious liberties are under attack.
If we lose religious freedom, if a secular orthodoxy rises and begins to force people of faith to keep their faith in the shadows, once that happens, you understand that we can no longer be America.
Eric Metaxas, who, by the way, was a guest on the 700 Club just a few days ago. The service was held in Statuary Hall at the Capitol, which served as a church for lawmakers, by the way, in the 1800s. You can watch the entire event by visiting our website at cbnnews.com. Well, a group of Texas cheerleaders will be able to use banners with Bible verses after all. A judge finally ruled in their favor in a court case that CBN News has been following for months. As Paul Strand reports, it is a victory for religious freedom.
Last fall, an atheist group filed a complaint with the Kuntz, Texas school superintendent and said the scriptures on sports banners should not be allowed. But the cheerleaders argued that was a violation of their free speech and filed a lawsuit. Now a judge has ruled the cheerleaders have the right to display their faith messages. After the judge's decision, the cheerleaders were elated.
We were relieved. And we were really thankful that the judge ruled in our favor, because we know that God was definitely in that and working in his heart.
This all began when these Christian cheerleaders got tired of the same old negative banners displayed at the start of football games.
You know, in years past, the cheerleaders have had messages like, beat the Bears or kill the Cougars, things like that.
Attorney Justin Butterfield was a point man for the Liberty Institute in representing the cheerleaders. He says they began to display positive, encouraging scriptures. But some felt that crossed the line, supposedly separating church and state.
To be a violation of separation of church and state,
the message actually has to come from the government. And in this case, the message has always been the cheerleaders. The cheerleaders came up with the idea themselves. The cheerleaders developed the messages themselves. The cheerleaders wrote the banners themselves on banners that the cheerleaders paid for themselves.
In fact, the school district was trying to stop the cheerleaders, which angered Liberty Institute's general counsel.
This is just another example where the government is telling people what they can and cannot say. Well, that's not America. That's why we have a First Amendment.
The battle over the banners lasted 7 months. Paul Strand, CBN News.
Indeed, Pat, a victory for religious freedom.
Sure is. You know, some years ago, I was privileged to found something called the National Legal Foundation. That sort of went into disrepair, but it was replaced by the American Center for Law and Justice. But the National Legal Foundation had a case before the Supreme Court that was argued very ably by none other than Jay Sekulow. And in that case, 7-2 decision written by a liberal judge that students did not lose their religious freedom at the schoolhouse door, and that they had an absolute First Amendment right to express their faith openly without being restrained. And so that's the landmark Supreme Court case, never been overturned, 7-2 decision, Mergens versus West Side School District. That's the controlling legal authority. And so as long as those cheerleaders, they're expressing their faith and they want to put scripture verses up, good for them. Nobody can stop them. The atheists will try, but we did stick a stake in the sand some years ago, and it's still there.
A new Senate bill aims to crack down on cyber spying. Lawmakers want to prevent the theft of data from American companies. The FBI says it's becoming increasingly important for law enforcement to combat attacks in cyberspace. Just this week, the Pentagon released a report to Congress accusing the Chinese government of cyber spying on the U.S. The most powerful leader in the European Union says Europe will become a united political federation within the next few years. José Manuel Barroso is president of the European Commission. He's laying out plans for an intensified political union that matches the economic cooperation in the EU. That includes plans for an elected president of Europe. The London Telegraph reports Barroso will call for efforts to create a European federation before the next European Union parliamentary elections next year. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com